Hi, I'm Rashonda. I'm the creator of ArtByRow.com, where I help hobby artists grow by teaching them how to focus on the process rather than the outcome. I specialize in developing creativity, creating more art in less time, and using graffiti art to generate ideas instead of always wondering what you should be working on. If this sounds like something you'd be interested in, subscribe so you get notified whenever new videos get uploaded. Now let's head on over to the art studio and do some drawings. We're going to work on today's tutorial together. Let's head on over. All right, let's draw a couple of hearts by starting with some basic shapes so we can have our drawings look a little bit nicer than what we're used to from, like elementary school days. We want to make our drawings look a little bit nicer, a little more interesting. So one of the things that I love about using shapes for the drawings is that it really gets you over that blank page syndrome where you're just looking at that blank piece of paper or blank canvas and you don't know how to get started. So it's real easy because one of the things is that it will help with the placement and the proportions. So I know I want my heart to take up most of this piece of paper. And I'm doing this on artist trading cards. I do most of my work on artist trading cards because I enjoy trading them. And I like having a little mini portfolio that I can store on my shelf and my drawings don't take up a lot of room. So this is done on an artist trading card. So I want to fill in most of this with my heart. I want my heart to be nice and big on here. So we're going to start by doing some basic shapes. I'm going to start over here. So this is where the top part is going to be. And I also want to make this heart uneven. I don't want it to be symmetrical. I want this side of my heart to be slightly smaller. And I want it to be lower than this side. You can make these circles, you can make them even, or you can make them different sizes. It doesn't really matter. It just depends on how you want your finished drawing to look like. And then we want to draw a line coming down for the bottom part of the heart. Again, if you want this to not come straight down, so one of the things that looks kind of nice with hearts is to bring this off to the side. And that helps make it a little bit more interesting to look at. So the next thing we want to do is we're just going to make out the shape of the actual heart. And you want your line to come around the top of the circle. That gives us a nice rounded shape up here. And then you're simply going to continue down here to this line. So come around your circle and over here to the line. Now I also know that I want to make this kind of indented right here, so I'm going to continue that down there. And then I'm going to do this other side, come right around the shape of the circle, and I'm going to curve it in a little bit to get that curve right here. And then bring that around. So by using these circles to get this basic shape of our heart laid out, it makes it easier to get these nice rounded shapes up here. If you're drawing a heart freehand, usually what happens is this shape up here isn't as rounded. You end up with kind of a funky shape up at the top. So this just helps you get it laid out It helps with the placement, getting the proportions right, and getting those first marks on the paper. So all of these will be erased. And normally what I would do is after I outline my drawing, then I would use a bigger eraser and then go in and clean it up. But so there's our heart drawing. The next step is to outline and to add some color. So when doing your outlines, you can use, I usually use black. You don't have to use black. You could use red or purple or another color. You can use an outlining pen. I like these Sharpie outlining pens. You can use a bigger pen or a bigger marker and outline it with the marker. You could use one of these dual tip markers, has a little bit smaller point, or you could use a brush pen. And the advantage of a brush pen is that you can get some nice thick and thin lines just by using the one pen. So I'm going to go ahead and use my brush pen today, which is something that is on my list of things that I want to do. Is I want to get back in the habit of using my brush pen, because I used to use them all the time and I kind of got away from it. They do take a little bit of practice to get the good transitions of thick and thin. But what I like about it is that you get some good variation, which will make your drawings look a little bit more interesting. But it doesn't really matter. It's just a personal preference of what type of outline you like. Or maybe you don't want an outline at all. That's okay too, if that's the look you're going for. Which is why I like doing these on artist trading cards. They don't take a lot of time to do, so you have a lot of freedom to try some different things. So we have the outline done. The next step is to add some colors. So I'm going to go grab me some markers real quick and I'll be right back. All right, so when choosing your markers for your hearts, don't feel like you have to stick with the traditional pinks and reds. You could do any color you want. You could do purple, you could do green, you can do orange. And then what I do is I test out my colors on a piece of scrap paper. This is left over from cutting out my artist trading cards. I want my colors to blend together, and I like to pick 2 or 3 colors. Since this is just an open area of color, I'm going to use 3 markers today. So I'm going to use these 3 pink markers. You want a light color, a medium color, and then a darker color. And if you want to blend your colors, if you're using markers and you want your colors to be able to blend together for smooth transitions, then you need to make sure you're using alcohol markers. There's a lot of different brands out there. The best thing you can do is just experiment, try some different things. These markers are ones that my boss gave to me. She's seen them somewhere and picked them up. And there's quite a few markers in here. There's a decent selection. I don't know how much she paid for them, but you can usually get an entire set of markers fairly cheap. You don't have to go with like the Prismacolor or the Copic. Don't feel like you have to spend a lot of money on your markers. You just want to make sure they're alcohol-based markers so that they can blend. So the way I work is I'll take my lightest color and fill in the entire area. Even though I know I'm going to be adding in darker colors over top, I like to layer my colors. I feel like it gives me more flexibility with where I'm putting my darker colors at. And it's just my personal preference of how I like to work. You could also start with your darker colors first, if that's your preference. It's up to you. You'll have to just kind of play around with it. You know, like I was saying earlier, the artist trading cards are really nice because you could do several drawings in the same amount of time as what it would take you to do some drawings on a full piece of paper. Like if you were working in a sketchbook, then it would take you a lot longer to get these drawings completed. So you would be more limited on being able to take chances because you'd be afraid of ruining the drawing and wasting hours and having to start all over if you feel like it's messed up. So the artist trading cards are really nice because they don't take as long to make. If you try something and you don't like it, it's no big deal. You just try another one. So I'm just adding in some darker areas. Like I know right here this would create a shadow. I know that would be darker right there. I'm not really worrying about things like light sources and stuff like that. You can, if you want to consider your light source and you want to make it more realistic with your shading, that's up to you. I do my artwork just because I enjoy it. I enjoy the relaxation of it. So, to be honest, I don't put a ton of thought into where the shadows would be, where the light source is coming from. That's just not something that I'm interested in really working on. There was a time that I did. Back years ago, I really wanted to do realistic drawings and put hours and hours into one single drawing. And it really just kind of, for me, it led more to burnout than anything else. And I made the decision that I just want to focus on things that I find relaxing and enjoyable with my art. So the way that you blend these is by laying in your darker color and then going back with your lighter color and going over top of it where the two colors meet and blending them together. So the other thing you need to keep in mind is that as you layer your colors, they're going to change. Like if I put one layer of this lightest color down, it's going to look different than if I put another layer down. If I have two layers, it's going to be darker than just the one layer. So keep in mind that as you work back and forth with your colors, it's going to change the way the colors look a little bit, which you'll get used to that. And really the only thing you need to do is to make sure you're working while the marker's still wet if you want your colors to blend together. So you can just go back and forth with your colors from your darker to your mid and your light. So I think that's it for the heart colors. I don't think I want to do too much more. Sometimes your paper can get a little too saturated and it makes the colors a little bit harder to work with. And also sometimes these cheaper sets, you don't get as good of a variation in your colors. Like I would like something a little closer to this darker color to help transition that a little bit better. For the way I like to work, I don't like these harsh edges right here. So I'm going to go in with that color, blend that a little bit right there. But don't feel like you have to use pink or purple or red for your heart. Experiment with some different colors, try some different things, see what you like, what you don't like, and just kind of play around with it a little bit. So now we need to do a background. If you don't feel like making an entire background for your drawing, you can just do some color, like you could do a color border around the edge. You could do color around the heart. I really like this this blue color. This is one of my favorite markers for adding an outline. I like the way this color looks. So when you're doing your backgrounds, you have a couple of choices. You could do some kind of scenery in the background. You could do some abstract designs. You could color it in solid. You could do just some color gradation in the background. A lot of times what I'll do is fill the background in with a lighter color or a mid-tone color, and then just on the edges do a darker color and blend them in. That's an easy way to do a background. Just adding this, I call it a halo, around the image will break up this background a little bit and make it look a little nicer, make it look a little less of a heart floating on your paper. So it just adds a little something to it. Finishes it up a little bit, makes it look like a finished piece of art instead of just some random heart floating on a piece of paper. The other thing you can do is with a jelly roll pen, a white jelly roll pen. These work really, really good for going over top of markers. I like to add some white highlights just to break up these big areas of color. You could also go in with some gray or darker colors, or maybe like a black colored pencil, and add some darker shadows in here if you wanted around the edge. But that's it for that one. Using the shapes just makes it a little bit easier to see where you're going and where your finished drawing's gonna end up. So that's it for the heart. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found it helpful, and I really hope you feel motivated to experiment and try some different styles of hearts instead of your basic heart drawings that you learned in elementary school. Try to push yourself a little bit and see what you can do with it. So how did you do? Hopefully you followed along with the tutorial and worked on your own artwork. If you enjoyed this and you want to get notified of other lessons that are coming up in the future, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and you'll get notified whenever something new gets uploaded. Have a good day and happy creating!